Listen to me now.
This is you. That's his move. Watch.
Yeah, just hold back with this.
Cool. Hi everyone, I'm with Master Chen Zhonghua of Chen Style Practical Method. He was conducting the 9th Indonesian Chen Style Practical Method workshop in Bogor, Indonesia over the past couple of days, over the weekend. And we had the open push-hands tournament as well, where the winners would travel to Dajingshan for the finals. Master Chen was very kind to give me some of his time after the workshop so we can just have a chat. And there are some very interesting questions I'd like to ask for Master Chen because I was very impressed by your understanding and the application of the classics to both training and application of the art, because I've seen, there are millions of practitioners who practice Tai Chi in the world, and everyone in a way uses the classics as the gospel in a way, but the understanding and especially the application of what is spoken in the classics to both the training and the practice of the art, the usage of the art, is somewhat dubious in many ways. So I'd like to, maybe if you don't mind, we can start with a little bit about your time with Master Hong Junsheng and Master Feng as well, so that people understand what it is like to train in the traditional way. Like, these days it's very much westernized. So.
Okay. First, I'd like to talk about my first master, Hong Junsheng. It was quite by chance that I met him, and many people ask me how I was able to find him, and because people today are struggling looking for a good master, and unfortunately, I did not have a method of finding him.
Okay.
He was the first person I heard about that I was told that there was an old man who did Tai Chi, but that Tai Chi was useful. And like the people today, I did not believe that.
Right.
And so I went to Black Tiger Springs. It's a park in Jinan on the weekend. I did not really do it, but the intention was to go and challenge him.
Right.
I was 18 years old.
Okay.
I did not believe any of the stuff that you normally
all the
hear
stories you hear
about Tai Chi. And so it wasn't a challenge, and I ran into a demonstration actually, and I trusted what I saw because the demonstration was with some Japanese visitors. There was a group of Japanese visitors, a delegation from a prefecture, Shankou, I think it's Yamaguchi, in English probably. And they were on the Black Tiger Springs and doing things, and when I arrived, they just finished doing a group photo. I think at that time I counted 27 people.
Oh wow!
And
big delegation.
and after the group photo, one of them, who looked like their coach, asked Hong to show the applications.
Right.
And so he said, "We've been here and we studied what you taught us, but now we're leaving tomorrow. Before we leave, could you show us what this is for? We studied patiently, but we would like to know that this is useful." And Hong responded by murmuring, talking to himself, and says, "Oh, you guys are here to challenge me."
Right.
And the Japanese person heard and he said, no, this is not a challenge. And Hong kind of, I can't remember the exact words because over the years I verbalized, internalized everything in English. And but the idea was that he said, any way you put it, you are challenging me. And he said, fine, it's no problem. And then the Japanese person asked him how. And Hong said, what you challenge me, I'm not going to tell you how. You do whatever you want. And so there was quite a discussion because there was a translation, interpretation there. So in the end, the guy threw a punch. And I've never seen karate before at that time. And it looked like a Shaolin punch to me. And I saw from distance that the fist never landed on Hong, but the guy jumped back. And so he immediately came back and he said, I'd like to feel this again, but
Yeah.
don't change.
Yeah.
And Hong said, if you don't change, why would there be a change?
Yep.
So they both followed rules.
Yep.
And he threw a second punch and he bounced back.
Yep.
And then he said, this time I'm prepared, but I don't know what happened.
Yep.
Could I try again?
Yep.
He tried for a third time, and the same thing happened. By this time, I waded my way into the crowd, and I was very close.
Yep.
I was watching. Roughly, the fist was coming towards this area,
Yeah.
and it never landed. The guy
Yeah.
jumped back.
Yep.
And so this time, the person says, I'm not going to try again.
Yeah.
I said, because there's no way I can find out. I just don't know what happened.
Yep.
So after everybody left, I was very curious, and I stayed behind, and I followed home. And then halfway through, there was a city moat.
Okay.
There was a small bridge.
Yep.
I went over in front of him, stopped him on the bridge,
Yep.
and asked him to teach me.
So
then
you don't know where to go.
It's like the old stories. And
Yep.
he looked around and he said, like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
I said, I want to learn that thing you bounce people back. He
Yeah.
said, what thing? He says, I'm just an old man walking around. I said, no, I saw you doing the things. He said, no, that's not me. There are lots of old people.
Right.
So it was always joking.
Yeah.
And that's how I got started.
Right.
So
Right.
I am very fortunate because in terms of time and age, that was just the end of an era.
Right.
After that, there were no people of that age.
Yeah.
Like the next generation, even Hong's disciples, 20, 30 years older than me.
Yeah.
And I consider them people of this new age,
Yes.
current with us. But Hong still had a lot of the old behavior.
Right. Right.
And so when I was learning from Hong, there was no teaching, no formal teaching.
Right.
You follow him and you copy him and you try not to ask questions.
Right.
And there was a lot of training because he did everything, you just followed him.
Yep.
At the beginning, I did not know what they were doing, but they always started in darkness.
Right.
By the time there was daylight, then he was doing the form with people behind him.
Right.
And nobody ever invited you. There's no formal entry. You just watched from afar.
Right.
Very animalistic. You approach, get closer.
Yep.
They stare at you. You step back.
Yep.
Then after a few months, they don't look at
They
you
don't.
anymore.
They look at you
get
anymore, so you
closer.
blend in.
You get closer. And but you don't, like I, for the first 3 years, never asked a question.
Right.
Because you're very afraid that you might offend someone. Because sometimes students will look at you, then you back off.
Right.
And that's how I did all my learning. I started talking to him
Yep.
after I spent 7 years in Canada. When I returned to China, I was more mature.
Yep.
Became, in terms of age and also professional maturity, I felt that I was able to talk to him as a human.
Yep.
Before, I felt like I was a kid.
Fair enough.
Because he was much, much older than
Yeah.
me. He was in his 70s. I was less than 20 years old.
Right. And like having followed his system for so long, you probably have a better understanding of what he's doing and have be able to ask the right questions rather than like like a lot of questions that people ask when they first start something is very much redundant because if they spend a week doing it, they'll understand a bit more about it, right? So,
Yeah.
it's very traditional and old school.
Yeah. The one of the problems I have today, because without knowing it subconsciously, I picked up the system the way he was teaching.
Yep.
The system is very random
Okay.
and on the surface.
Okay.
But the rules and the real system is very scientific, very methodical. But those things were never verbalized.
Right.
And you only see anecdotal things. And it's over years that you internalize the system yourself.
Right. So you learn it through practice yourself.
It's, let's say today you pick up 3 things and you don't know why they were there.
Right.
And they don't appear to be part of anything.
Right.
But after many years you realize, oh, okay, this is a nut. The other one is a bolt.
Right.
And they are pieces of the puzzle.
Right.
But you were never told what the picture is. You were only told a piece at a time.
Right.
So that was his way of teaching.
Right. It's interesting because the teacher that I mentioned to you before, his teaching was very much like that. Like even the shapes, he wouldn't tell me the shape I'm supposed to make because he would say that it's not that I don't trust you, I don't trust your mind, because if I tell you how to do it without doing it the correct way, your mind will make up the shape.
Yeah.
And you will think that you got it.
You take a shortcut.
That's right, yeah. So, yeah.
Very similar.
It used to make me very frustrated because I didn't know what I was doing at any point in time.
I was okay because I grew up like that.
Right.
Being patient.
Right.
But I can see now that from a Western
Yep.
Point of view, when you are not told what this is about, you're only told just do it like this.
Yeah, that's right.
It totally does not make sense.
That's right, and you know, it's funny because I got into Tai Chi because I've come across Tai Chi from different sources from time to time, but I've dabbled. I haven't really practiced it. I've been introduced to it a couple of times, but from different traditions, I never really got into it. But in 2007, so my son and daughter were born in 2005 and 2006. So I was working from home and I had 2 kids, and I just needed some space for myself. So I wanted to sort of explore my mind more and get into meditation, but I just didn't have the patience. So Tai Chi was like the halfway point.
Yeah, it's more of a solitary kind of
Yeah. So that it had enough movement to keep me engaged, but also had the enough solitude and introspective aspect of it to not get bored.
Yeah.
So that's how I fell into the rabbit hole myself. So Master Chen, in terms of your experience with Grandmaster Hong Junsheng, and once you had started teaching it, and after Master Hong Junsheng, how did you come across Master Feng?
Again, there was quite coincidental. Hong Junsheng passed away.
Yeah.
I was in 1996, early in January, and I was too young to. Traditionally, when your master passes away, you become independent.
Okay.
Then you can teach.
Okay.
So before, when he was still alive, I taught on his behalf.
Right.
Say that I'm guiding, I'm an instructor.
Yep.
You're not a master.
Yep.
And when he passed away, I wasn't mature enough to believe that I was a master. So when you are too young, you need to continue to study.
Yes.
But traditionally, I knew that I couldn't study under people of a less caliber.
Yes, of course.
I had to find somebody at least is his equal.
Yeah.
And at that time, I believed Feng was 20 years younger than him. That wasn't up to the task.
Right.
I did not know him.
Yeah.
I only read about him.
Right.
But I had no desire to go to him.
Yeah.
But coincidentally, one of my best friends who was doing business, and I was helping him because he was doing business in Canada. And when he came to Canada, he would come to my studio, and we never really talked about Tai Chi because he was a businessman.
Right.
And one day he said that he was bragging about me in front of his one of his best friends.
Right.
It turned out she was Feng's daughter.
Oh, wow.
And so he basically said to Xiu Feng, Feng Xiu Feng, the daughter, says, you know, in terms of Tai Chi, my best friend is #1 in the world. And Xiu Feng said, that's not possible. There are always people better. There are Alps outside of Alps.
Yeah.
And he said, no, I'm serious. Like, this guy is the best.
Yeah.
And then he said, but he mentioned there was somebody who was his master's generation better. And she said, who could that be?
Yeah.
And he said, I don't remember the name, but it was something Feng. And so the daughter says, well, what do you call me? He says, well, your name is Feng Xiu Feng. He says, do you think there's a relationship? So it turned out she is the daughter.
Right.
And after that discovery, my friend Liu He was determined to make me his disciple. He says, now I can do this for you.
Yeah.
So he's kind of forced that upon me.
Cool.
He made all the arrangements. I met him in 1996, but didn't become a disciple until 1998.
Okay. So it's the both your major influences in your training have been quite faithful in that way.
Yeah, that's totally unprepared. And the first one was natural. The second time, it was quite a struggle.
Right.
Because Feng was so different from Hong.
Right.
I hated everything for up to the first 3 years.
Right.
Because Feng's approach is from soft to hard.
Right.
And but his own training was from hard to soft.
Right.
And when he reached a very high level, he realized that the hardness must be worn out. You must use a soft approach.
Right.
And but mine was that the Hong was the opposite. It's because he was very weak.
Yes.
He trained it to be hard.
Yes.
And in his advanced age, he was very powerful and strong, physically strong.
Yep.
And so one thing that Hong told me is that you can't be weak to be soft.
Mm-hmm.
To be soft, you have to be strong.
That's
Only
right.
when you are strong, then you can be nice and soft, because you can take the first blow.
Mm-hmm.
And so for Hong, the definition of Peng energy is the ability to take the first strike.
Right.
He says if you can't take the first strike, it's all over.
It's all over.
So he stresses on that. And the Feng says, never fight. And so it took me 3 years, and after I did the Hunyuan 24 form for 2,400 times.
Yep.
And I was very proud, and I tried to show him the form.
Yeah.
He never allowed me.
Right.
But he said, go ahead. As soon as I went like this, raise my hands, he says, you're too stiff. He would not look at my form. He would lead me in front. He wouldn't turn around and look at me.
Right.
It was, again, very hard.
Yeah.
But by that time, I was old enough to be patient.
Right.
And to be honest, until he died, his comment to me is that your previous training is too hard.
Right.
You have to soften up.
Right.
And so because of that, from 1998 all the way till today is 2023.
Yes.
To 2022, I never did Hunyuan in front of people.
Right.
Because I did not want to show the hard part. I would try to be soft by myself. But started this year, and more and more older people come to me.
Yeah.
And they want to learn Hunyuan. So I try to show the soft part. But I know in my heart that I'm not soft enough.
Fair enough.
And it's because at the beginning there was an internal conflict within me. And now I'm confident enough that I don't need strength for that side of the lineage. And before, I firmly believed if you don't have strength, it's not Tai Chi.
Right.
And now I totally decide that it's different. So don't compare them.
Fair enough. That makes sense. It's really interesting because, as I understand, Feng came from a fighting background. He took challenges with Chen Fake, right? So it's really interesting how he transformed over the years. And do you think that a lot of it had to do with the influence from Hu Yaozhen as well?
It's the influence from Hu Yaozhen was vital, was the most important. But the key that caused it is that when he became older, he had a philosophical change.
Right.
Because he started to realize that the physical thing only made you feel proud. It only made you do things that are irrational. And he said, what's the point of fighting?
Right.
What's the point of beating somebody and feel good about it? He says, we're all humans. In the end, it's the harmony. It's the self-atonement of yourself. It's not how you conquer other people. And he would consider fighting a very, very low scale level.
Yes, it sounds like he had a lot of experience and introspective wisdom at that age. But, it's very interesting that Grandmaster Hong Junsheng came from the health side and developed those skills. And like two different approaches to the
same art.
Yes, the same art, yeah. Right.
And also, incidentally, Hong was among the students of Chen Fake among the first class, and Feng Zhiqiang was among the last class.
Oh, right.
So you can see actually from the two of them, we can see Chen Fake himself transformed over the years himself.
Right. That's really, really interesting. And it's very lucky that you got to experience both sides of that.
It's not only me. Let me say it this way: the people of the Hunyuan group, because they've never met Hong before, they firmly believe Hong made it up. He says, in our system, everything is soft. This is real Tai Chi.
Right.
Your moves in Jinan are all hard. It looks very external. That cannot be Tai Chi.
Right.
And they believe that Hong actually never got it.
Right.
He says maybe because he was not professional, he just did what he saw. It's not internal.
Right.
And the people of my generation in Jinan, they think that this is how Chen Fake taught.
Right.
Maybe Feng did not really understand it. And so it's very hard. And it's hard for me because I'm a person on both sides.
Yeah.
And I actually never crossed. Because when I'm in Jinan, I never talk about Hunyuan. Because they will think this is totally wrong. And when I'm in Beijing, I never talk about the practical method.
It's really interesting because I've actually spoken to some Chen folks who follow the tradition from the Chen village who don't think very highly of either Grandmaster Hong Junsheng or Master Feng Zhiqiang. So it's really like depending on who you speak to, the world is very biased.
Experience.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to understand things that you have not experienced.
That's right. And because they haven't experienced, they form a judgment and they just stick to it. And thank you very much, Master. And that was very interesting and very informative, actually. And if it's okay, can we talk about what I was talking about before about your study of the classics and how you applied the principles that are described in the classics, maybe at a very high level, to both the training and application of your art?
I think I'm going to approach this from a different perspective. So, Hong said the classics were never wrong, but they were not useful. The reason is because the classics talk about something from the beginning to the end, and we lost everything in between. And so that the classics are only ideas. There are no real actions. So the practical method of Hong was a method, he said, we have to backtrack. We have to see what this means. The enticing to emptiness. What does empty mean in relation to what? And if we don't understand that, we just believe something, it's not of any usage to us. And that's why people cannot use Tai Chi, because they have lost everything in between there. So his approach is very scientific. I did not know that at the time. Is that he tracks, it's like our children's game of 22 questions. So practical means, he says, everything you say, you must follow up with a question, another question, until you exhaust your questions. Meaning that you have to pinpoint what it exactly means.
The root cause.
And so, for example, one of the things he showed me, and this is not video, but I think you can get the idea, is that you can be very strong like this, and somebody pushes you down. And that person will believe you are very, very hard. But in reality, when you put it here, that hardness is different from when you're suspended. And so he says, unless you touch, you're not solid. But most people think solid is strong. It has nothing to do with it. So in Chinese, we have a saying, says a straight piece of wood can withstand the weight of 1,000 pounds. It's because when the straight wood, 2x4, does not go sideways.
It's not twisting or anything.
The alignment is perfect. When it touches a perfect floor, it's called solid. When you deviate a little bit, it's not solid. And so the classic masters totally understood that, and they created things that are beyond belief. But today we think either we're soft or strong, but we don't have the alignment. And now we realize that today we have not only good construction materials, but the science is much better. Is that we can build things that are much better. In ancient times, it's very difficult to make a very tall building and make them last 100 years.
That's very true.
And so the approach of Hong is to totally go from a scientific point of view. So this is how he compares the classic and backtracks into what exactly they mean. So what he taught me, but these are my own words, is that the ancient Chinese were very good at martial art because they found the scientific way. But their language was totally lacking. Instead of using a scientific language like English to describe scientific things, they use idioms analogies.
Right.
And these are totally adequate.
Right.
And so we study Tai Chi as if we are reading a story, but it's actually a scientific manual.
Right.
And I joke about it because I used to work as a translator and interpreter.
All right.
So I always tell people,
Yeah.
let me translate it for you.
Right.
Because you think you understand, but
Yeah.
actually you only got the idea.
Yeah.
You have to understand exactly what it is.
Yeah. And actually, like you were saying before during the workshop, the translation from the classical Chinese to modern Chinese by people who are not really
Classic.
That
Already lost.
already lost the meaning, right? So that like what you translated, that you referred to in the analogy of a boat with regards to where the power is generated and how it is directed, which I think is like translated as my opponent moves first and I arrive first or something like this, right?
I arrived before him.
Right. But could you elaborate a little bit more about that? Because I think it's such a fundamental thing, and it virtually mistranslated. I have not seen a correct translation of it until you described it.
Oh, that one, because we talked about it. I can give you another example.
Yep.
So for example, in Chen Xin, the 16th generation grandmaster of the Chen family, and he wrote the only book. It's called the Illustrated Book of Chen Family Taijiquan. And all others like Chen Zhonghua and Chen Wangqing, they were poems.
Yeah.
But this is a book.
Yeah.
And in his book, one of the very clear messages, the first line says, Tai Chi, the art of authority.
Okay.
And so we as modern people think that, okay, our Tai Chi is authentic, is authoritative.
Yes.
And we are very proud of it. But Hong said to me, he says, you look at the classic dictionary, the word authority does not mean power.
Right.
And so I checked the Kangqi, the year of Kangqi, about 1700 dictionary.
Yeah.
And authority in Chinese, the word authority means counterweight.
Right.
So now you realize, you go back,
Yep.
Chen Xin's book says Tai Chi, the art of counterweight.
Yes.
Then you can change that without changing the idea.
Yeah.
You can say the art of the balance.
Yes.
You can say the art of harmony.
Yes.
But it's not the art that we are the only one. We
That's
are
right.
We are wrong.
Completely different meaning and not.
So that's one of the things, right?
Right. Because it takes away from the technical meaning and makes it about something else.
Yeah.
Yes. And
So
could you
that's
please,
one example.
That's great. Could you please share the example that you shared during the workshop as well, please?
Oh, it's the one we talked about issuing late.
Yes, please. Yeah.
So one of the classic Chinese idioms, and there are two meanings.
Yeah.
But one is that if your opponent does not move, you don't move.
Mm-hmm.
And if he starts to move, you move before him.
Right.
And it puzzled me all the time because when you say that you never issue the first strike, but then you say that you are always issuing before your opponent, but that does not make sense to me.
Yes.
And that came from the art of war. The Sun Tzu says that you must stay put and observe. When you issue your first strike, you are dead because they are waiting for you.
Right.
And but then he says, as soon as your opponent starts, you must finish him before he starts.
Right.
And that's, for me, just a contradiction.
Yeah.
So in Tai Chi, we use the same idiom, but Hong explained it. He says, the first and the second is not time.
Right.
It's position.
Right.
First means in front, second means behind.
Right.
And so because the art of Tai Chi is the art of balance, balance is a scale.
Yep.
And when you say scale, it means a balance with a pivot in the middle.
Yep.
And in that system of a lever, it's a lever, then you only move the back, and then the front will move.
The front will move,
And so when you touch your opponent in full, you move your rear paw or rear foot, but your opponent will only feel it on your hand.
Yes.
But you never use power on your hand.
Yeah.
The hand is always passive.
Yeah.
The power is always from behind.
Yeah.
So the issue late, it actually means issue from the rear.
Yes.
It's not a time thing. It's a position.
Yeah.
And so the most important saying in Chen Style Tai Chi, which is not written, is called 下他外年.
Okay.
The word 下, it means below. Ta means sink down. The word ta means landslide.
Right.
Wai means outside, nian means to grind.
Right.
So it's a description of when this sinks down, this will grind out.
Oh, right.
And so the classic move is this move here.
Right.
You have to have a pivot.
Yeah.
This is you do this a lot until you reach
Right.
this here. You never move here.
Yeah.
And when you move the front, power comes towards you.
Yes.
When you move behind, the power goes out.
Power goes out,
so
yeah.
this move is classic.
Right. So,
And,
so in the Yilu, I see that a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
And but this is only Hong took this approach. He
Right.
said you can see this action.
Right.
But it should be the whole body.
Yeah, fine.
But if it's the whole body, you can only go by sense. Right?
Yeah.
But this way, we can see that you're moving
Yeah.
here, power goes there. So
It's,
the word again is called the 下塔外念.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And I hope that one day you will maybe take some time to write your insights about the classics into a book, maybe.
I was thinking of that, but trying to find time. Yes.
Well, maybe when things are a little bit quieter. And so, Master, one of the really interesting things that I found through the workshop was that, I want to make sure that I understand this correctly. So, one of the key things that you were doing was you were basically unifying the hand and the elbow into the 2 points become one. And then the third point, which is the hidden point, you choose it arbitrarily in some point in the body that's away from the opponent, that they don't see, and that's where the pivoting or the change happens for the power to come out. Is that correct?
Yes.
Great. So I just wanted to make sure that that was because that was very clear and concise in the way you described it, and I was wondering that in the Yulu, when you do it, at different points, the third hidden point, do you change that third hidden point for the different postures? Or?
The change is within a framework.
Okay.
Meaning that you always lock the outside, the two ends. The third point is in between somewhere.
Yes.
And so for the Chinese system, there is a system called He Tu Luo Shu,
Okay.
the book of the river,
Okay.
and the chart of the river.
Uh-huh.
One river is called the Yellow River,
Okay.
and the other is Luo River,
Okay.
both in the Chen Village area.
Oh, right.
But Chen Village has Taiji, but He Tu and Luo Shu, those two charts were the most mysterious two charts in the Chinese history.
Right.
The Chinese started with these two charts.
Okay.
One is a chart of dots,
Okay.
another is a chart of lines. And they precede Chinese language. And so the legend is that one day when Chinese were uncivilized, a horse came out.
Right.
And there were burnt marks on the side of the horse.
Okay.
And they were considered the book of heaven.
Right.
That God printed that on that horse to show humans this is the secret.
Right.
And then a few hundred years later, out of the Luo River, a turtle came out, and there were dots on the back of the shell.
Yep.
And so the Chinese regarded these two as the origin of our culture.
Right.
And so that is when you look at the dots, it always shows that from here to here, if this is 1, there are 9 on this side, so they form a 10. And in any direction, they always form a 10.
Right.
And in the middle, there are 5.
Okay.
So the Chinese system is always a balance of 15.
Right.
And the 5 in the middle is a security. And with the 5 points, it's an anchor. Then when you anchor, if this is 1, this is 9. If this is 2, this is 8. If this is 3, this is 7. And the Chen Village people corresponded those with the body.
Right.
And so the dantian is the 5 that never moves. We always think of dantian as moving. The Chen Village original idea is the dantian is the anchor, is the pivot. And then if your hand is 1, your rear foot is 9.
Right.
So that you have a lever here.
Yes.
It's a lever in all directions.
Yes.
And so the original idea of Taiji, the 8 techniques, actually are the same in 8 different directions.
Right.
And 8 different variations of a lever.
Right.
So we call that the switching.
Right.
The switch is that if you have 9 power, I use 1 to meet it. But because I have 9 behind, so we can balance each other.
That's right.
And with this one not moving, this is approachable.
Yes.
If this one moves, everything is in flux.
Yeah.
You cannot do it.
There's no stability, there's no stillness
Yeah.
within,
So the the question here is that the variation is in between.
Yes.
And within the system of 10.
Right.
And then larger within the system of 15.
Okay.
And so it's a counting system.
Right.
Or you can say it's a system of, it's like mathematics. So you can only go to 10 in normal senses.
Yes.
Then if there is another one, then it's a 10 plus 1.
Yes.
We call it 11. And Taiji originally was like that.
Right.
So all the movements must be within the 15.
Right. And you were saying in the workshop also that was quite profound, was that when you're in harmony, you take one thing away that draws into emptiness.
Yeah.
And
it collapses the whole thing.
Yeah. And if you add one thing, then it just basically creates an issue.
Yeah. So I use a positive example of the peng blowing up.
Mm-hmm.
So Hong said, if you have a glass jar and start putting marbles in it, and by the time it's full, but there's lots of space. You put one marble and try it because there's no room, but you hammer that marble, the whole jar blows up.
Yes.
And that's why we say that when you reach balance, that one means everything.
Right. Because that changes the state of the entire system.
Yeah.
Right.
Our problem of not having peng is that when you finish your 99, by the time you put the 100th marble, every other marble left already.
Yeah.
You don't have any.
That's right, yeah. Great. That explains it very clearly. Thank you so much.
Okay.
And don't want to take too much of your time. I will actually include my chat I had with Chen Shu as well, if you don't mind, towards the end of this, because it was really interesting to hear Chen Shu's view of like what was it like to train with you, and also he explained his own personal practice and how like the level of effort and the type of effort that it took for him to be as good as he is. So I think that'll be very insightful for a lot of people, because I think one of the questions that people have these days is that we talk about all the skills of the masters, but we don't necessarily understand the effort it took to get there. So I think that'll be really cool. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that you would think would be useful for the audience?
The most important thing for me is that almost everybody I run into understands the theory. The key is how to actually make it work.
Yes.
And to make it work, it's a method.
Yes.
And every person has a different method.
Yes.
So we can say that the methods, some are more efficient than others.
Yes.
The art itself never changes.
Yes. And that's a very interesting point, because I think especially in the traditional martial arts, like it's different with your school because you do open push hands, like Chen Shu pushes with everybody at every workshop, right? So it's very different from your side, but a lot of traditional martial arts tend to only commingle with like the same tradition, sometimes only under the same teacher.
Yeah.
So nothing really gets tested and validated against people doing different things. So they become, my experience is that they become very efficient working within their own system, but they have a lot of trouble adapting to dealing with other systems because they become over-specialized.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, that is something that hopefully will change one day. And the effort that you're doing with the open push hands competition, I think it's really helpful in that way. But I think there's a long way for us to go there, because we are not going to have that continuous improvement and validation of the methods unless they are being tested and they're being verified.
Yeah, totally, I agree.
So I'm looking forward to Dajing Chan in 2024, and so that's going to be just the finals this time.
Yeah.
And
it's the problem in the past is that we go for 3 days, and the competition you saw yesterday actually is much better.
Right.
Because it's Gora selected people. Like lots of people applied.
Right. He selected them.
Yeah. Gora, because he knows people.
Yeah.
He basically says, I don't want beginners to waste everybody's time.
Yeah.
And on Dajing Shan, the first 7 competitions, we open it to everybody.
Right.
So I would say more than 70% were just beginners. And people fall asleep.
Yeah.
And so there is no real change. The only approach is that I want the entire competition to be very exciting.
Right.
And so that's why I do the
pre-selection around the world.
So to make it more interesting.
Yeah, and you know, it'll probably be a better use of your time as well because you're basically getting all the high level skills.
Yeah.
Great. So are you going? Would that footage be available online for people to see or subscribe to?
Oh yeah.
Oh great.
Sure.
That'll be fantastic. I'm very much looking forward to it.
I'll be working on it.
Yeah.
And it depends on, by probably March, I'll have a very definite idea.
Cool, great. Very much looking forward to it. So from Indonesia, the representative of 3 people or?
2 or 3.
2 or 3, okay. And from different regions, you have from North America?
Basically North America, Europe, Southeast Asia, Australia together, and then China. So 4 different groups.
4 different groups. Great. That'll be very entertaining because.
So the Chinese, the Chinese will be the last. So the competition itself is on the 29th.
Yep.
On the 29th, it will be the Chinese selected.
Right.
Then after that, then the final.
Oh, okay, great. And even in China, there's many different diverse groups that come, right? And Mongolian wrestlers came as well.
One of the things I did with my Tai Chi competition is that we were never close.
Right.
Right from the beginning, MMA people, and whoever you are, whatever you don't even have to have done any Tai Chi.
Yeah.
But as long as you understand the rules, you think you can do it, then go ahead.
Great, that'll be very exciting. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And thank you very much for spending the time with me to talk.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure. I'm sorry that Rory couldn't be here, but if he could in any way, he would have been here.
I'm very happy to have met you because for me, just knowing the name and read, and it just did not make sense to me. I needed to see people.
Fair enough, and I've been waiting to meet you for a very long time as well. It just didn't happen, and when Rory said that he was coming to Indonesia to see you, it was like, okay, I'm going to make this happen. So, thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Thank you. Hi everyone. I'm here in Bogor, Indonesia, in Jakarta, for the 9th annual workshop of Chen Style Practical Method with Master Chen Zhonghua and his disciple Chen Zhu. And they kindly dedicated some time for us to have a chat in the morning, and I had some questions to ask from Master Chen Zhonghua and Chen Zhu as well. And so if you're ready, I'll just basically roll into it.
First question.
Great. So if you could say a little bit about Chen Zhu's journey in the practical method with Master Chen, because I know that he's been a disciple for a long time in the mainland China, and a lot of my friends have mentioned him in like Hu Yaozhen and things like that, have mentioned him since my first time meeting him. So I'd like for him to share a little bit about how long has been training with Master and his experience training with Master.
先给自我介绍，就是你的名声、你的地位在门派，还有你从第一天开始已经练了多少年？对。
我的名字叫陈旭，是山东人。
My name is Chen Xu. I am originally from Shandong, China.
我是2010年跟随陈中华老师练拳。
I started off with Master Chen Zhonghua in 2010.
Long time.
到现在已经第13年了。
So until now, it's my 13 years.
Okay.
Yeah, training.
Yes.
So you must have started very young.
你从小开始练？
没有。
No.
是从25岁、26岁。
I started off from the age of 25, 26 years old.
Oh, you look very young.
看起来很年轻。
Cool. So currently you train in Dajingshan when Master Chen travels the world. Is that how it works?
现在你在大线上练，然后也是跟着随着师傅到世界各地参加培训吗？
是的，在国内和国外，有很多时候都是我跟随老师出来讲座。
Yes, indeed. I travel domestically in China as well as internationally to accompany my master for all the workshops domestically and globally.
Oh, great! And so the rest of the time you train in China when you're not traveling with master?
Yes.
那如果没有讲座的时候，你是在山上练拳的吗？
是的，我是在山上练拳。
Yes, I mean it. Train full time in the mountain.
山上有一部分学生是常年在大青山学拳的。
In the mountain, there's a majority of the student is on a long-term annual basis, learning full time in the mountain.
Oh wow! So this is the Dajingshan mountain that you're talking about, right?
他说这是大青山山上的基地嘛？
对，大青山是我们这个总部的一个基地。
Yes, indeed. 大青山 is our main headquarters for in China as well as globally the main headquarters.
Oh, great. So this is where the push hands competition finals are going to be held in April as well?
那么就是说，这个基地是不是明年4月份变成了国际大赛、推手国际大赛的地方呢？
对对对，就是在那个大青山。
Yes, indeed, it is going to be the main headquarters and the main center of attraction for the international push hands competition in 2024 April.
Oh, great. Look forward to it, and maybe I can make it there. I'm not sure, but we'll see.
很期待的去明年的大赛。
欢迎你去。
Welcome to come along.
Cool. Thank you very much. So I had a question about the training in the mountains. So when you train there full time, what does your training day look like? What does it involve?
我有问题关于你在山上的培训的时候，你可以详细的解释一下内容吗？如何的锻炼？
我们是每天有4个时间锻炼。
Every day we have 4 training slots in a day.
Okay.
早上是晨练。
In the morning you have the morning exercise.
有中午、上午课、下午课，还有夜课。
Then we have the mid afternoon. Then we have the mid afternoon, late afternoon, and the evening classes as well.
我们练习的内容有基本功、一路、推手、器械。
Our topic of training include the basic foundations, the ilu, and also the taolu, which is the forms, and finally is the push hands.
Oh, cool.
On an everyday basis.
Everyday basis. Wow, that's a lot of training, and I know that when you travel, you basically push hands with everybody, and you seem very fit and you seem very experienced and you have a lot of skill. So I was curious, like if someone wants to, like someone who is currently studying practical method or want to get into learning practical method, if they want to reach your skill level, what do you think that they should be focusing on, and how should you think that they should be spending their time? Like insights from your own personal practice to reach your level of skill, what have you found the most important to be?
他说，当一个初学者根本没有接触到太极，要想接触这个实用拳法，达到你这种水平、这种程度的话，可以就是给一个指导，如何可以做出像你这样的成绩吗？
练习我们这个实用拳法，最主要的一点是喜欢。
To train our practical method, the most important part is you must have a liking in it.
然后把最少有3年的时间，把所有的精力都要用在实用拳法上。
At least you must put 3 years of your full commitment and dedication into this practical method.
就前面3年要每天要最少20遍一路。
The first 3 years you must commit to train ilu at least 20 times ilu a day, every day for the first 3 years.
这20趟一路是最基础的。
So these 20 times of ilu daily ilu is the most basic foundation of all.
在这套路的基础上，再往上加基本功，加推手。
But then after that, the basics of the forms, of course, you need to put in the basic foundation and also push hands in it.
Oh, great. So Master Chen was yesterday mentioning as well how Yilu is a container for all the skills that you're building, and that is a very important thing within the system.
昨天师傅有说过，就是说一路是练系统最基本之一的方式是吗？
对，是的。
Yes, indeed.
Great. And so, in terms of training in that way, have you particularly found anything to be challenging, or do you find anything particularly difficult, or do you have an insight to offer to anyone that they should be focusing on while they're training? Any mistakes that you can point at?
除了刻苦训练之外，你有没有觉得你在这个拳有特别的才华，或者你有对什么特别的喜爱，或者其他的东西？除了刻苦训练之外呢，你有什么感受？
才华这方面是很少， 就是和普通人是一样的。
Apart being talented, I don't consider myself talented. I consider myself pretty similar like ordinary people.
我现在所达到的这个水平是一直坚持的原因。
First, the reason why I managed to reach up to this level today is because I focus on based on all the basic foundations.
我的生活中所有的事情都是围绕这个练习太极拳为中心进行的。
My life is basically encircled and circle into this practical method Tai Chi. So practical method Tai Chi is my epicenter of my life.
I mean that makes sense. Given like you can't, like a lot of people get into these arts thinking that it's a casual endeavor to achieve the skills, but it's like any sport, right? If you're a professional sports person, that becomes the epicenter of their life. So that makes perfect sense.
所以现在我才了解，理所当然，你把太极变成你的核中心，所以我现在了解你才可以达到你现在的今天。
是的，是的。
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
And the last question you don't really have to answer if you're not comfortable. It's a bit more personal question. So when you go around the world and you touch hands with a lot of people, I can imagine that you touch hands with all sorts of people who respond in very different ways to being outclassed by you, for lack of a better word, right? So, so how do you deal with that? Because I know in some people can be very aggressive and some people can be very defensive. So how do you deal with all these different personalities coming in? Because you touch hand with everybody, right? So how do you navigate that?
最后一个问题，这个有点私人问题，当然你可以也不需要回答。我只知道你到世界各地跟人家交流切磋，跟人家打手，你还有面对的人也是不同各种各样的人，有大有小，有体力蛮大的，但是你可以克制他们全部。你是怎么样的？用什么样的方式？什么样的感受？什么样的功夫来可以镇得住那些人，各种各样的人在世界各地？
我跟随陈中华老师到世界各地教拳。
I followed my master Chen Zhonghua throughout the world to teach workshops and teach practical method.
每次的讲座中都会有推手的实践。
Every workshop for sure will allocate times for push hands.
也是每个地方都有非常多的人跟我推手。
And every parts of the world workshop, there are people who are very curious, who wants to have a go in pushing hands with him.
我们这个试手呢是可以接受任何人，不管是体重大小，还是性别，还是年龄，都没有关系。
And our push hand system is we can accept all kind of people, big size, so regardless of gender, age, whatever. It's pretty universal. Our push hands.
在教手的过程中，基本上没有败过。
As for till now, I pretty much dare to say that I have not failed in my journey and in push hands.
这需要平时积累，练拳积累很多，练拳的积累。
Basically, this requires a lot of full-time dedication and training and a lot of hard work and efforts.
这样在教手的过程中才会有信心和勇气。
Then because of that dedication training, then I will have the confidence to push hands with people from all walks of life.
And of course you can see that Master Chen appreciates that because he basically lets you represent the system to anyone to try, right? So that's quite an honor.
我现在也是发现到，就是您师傅就是委托你这个任务，带你到世界各地，让你尝试跟世界各地的人不一样的人，而你觉得，我也自己觉得这是对你的一种荣誉，是吗？
这既是一种推广宣传，也是一种荣誉。
This is a form of promoting globally as publicity, and of course it is an honor for me.
能让更多人去体会这个太极的魅力。
To let more people, to reach out to more people globally, the beauty of this Tai Chi.
Great, and hope people listening will be curious and come and experience this too. And thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's going to be a big day today with the push hands competition and training in the morning as well. So my understanding is that the push hands, the winners, the three top players from this push hands competition, gets to go and represent Indonesia in the finals in Dajingshan in April.
希望经过这个采访，我的视频可以帮你推广使用拳法到世界各地，还有呢希望会不少太极爱好者会被这个使用拳法吸引住，然后呢我就是知道昨天 今天下午会有个国际大赛，推手国际大赛，而夺冠者的话有三个体重级别的夺冠者的话会被赞助邀请到明年大兴山的国际大赛是吗？
是的，是的。
Yes, indeed, it is.
Great, and so there'll be a lot of competitors who are basically looking forward to that opportunity, I believe.
那么今天会有很多参赛者吗？来今天下午的比赛吗？
有30几个人。
There are about 30 over competitors, fighters who is going to compete for this international match.
Wow, great! Look forward to it. And anything else you'd like to add before we finish?
哇，很棒！我很盼望今天下午的比赛还有什么你要加补的吗？
可以了，可以。
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Listen to me now.